Hey everyone, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to totally demystify the complex biomechanics and physics behind how elite tennis players move. You might think the sport is all about the perfect swing or the massive power behind a serve, but honestly, the most absolutely crucial science is happening directly beneath the player's feet. So, think about this for a second. How much of a tennis match is actually decided before the racket even makes contact with the ball? It's kind of a mind-bending concept, but the reality is that court surfaces and footwear heavily dictate the entire pace of the game, the specific strategies players can even use, and, maybe most importantly, they completely influence injury rates before a single point is ever played. Okay, so here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover the invisible physics, the battle of the surfaces, the science of the shoe, the art of the slide, wheelchair court dynamics, and finally, grip, slip, and injuries. Let's dive right into part 1, the invisible physics. Forces beneath the feet. We really need to start by looking at the literal bottom layer of the sport to understand the immense physical toll this kind of movement takes. Just consider this single, powerful number for a moment. 3. During a typical match, these players are constantly sprinting and then just stopping on a dime. When they undergo that kind of rapid deceleration, they routinely experience kinetic forces up to 3 times their own body weight. Literally 3 times. Just imagine sprinting at full speed and then having 3 times your own mass driven directly into your ankles, your knees, and your hips just to change direction. It is a massive, invisible load that the human body somehow has to absorb. Moving on to part 2, Battle of the Surfaces. Clay versus hard courts. Let's see how those intense physics build up when we pit completely contrasting venues against each other. There is a stark, absolute contrast between these environments. On one side, we've got clay courts. These are made of a loose, particulate surface. They inherently have way lower friction, which naturally encourages the shoe to slide. You can literally see the red dust kick up as the players glide around. But then on the other side, we have hard courts. This is a rigid acrylic surface. It has extremely high friction, resulting in very unforgiving, abrupt stops. So the entire physical environment of the game totally shifts depending on the granular materials the players are standing on. And the ultimate dictator of all this movement? It's something called translational friction. Essentially, this is the resistance to motion of an object moving across a surface. In the context of tennis, translational friction is that invisible hand grabbing a player's shoe. It's the absolute deciding factor on whether a player will securely grip the court to push off or initiate a smooth, controlled slip. Which brings us to part 3, the science of the shoe, engineering performance. Now that we know what the ground is doing, we have to look at the incredible engineering that's literally wrapping the player's foot. Let's slow down for a second, because the source material introduces this dense but absolutely fascinating metric. It's called the critical shoe contact area ratio. What this actually means is that there's a highly specific proportion of the shoe's sole that must touch the ground to trigger a controlled slide rather than a jarring, abrupt stop. We're not just talking about a piece of rubber glued to a shoe here. Biomechanical engineers are calculating this ratio using the exact same principles and heavy math used to design high-performance Formula One tires. They're quite literally mathematically engineering the threshold between traction and release. And it's so cool to see how that complex math translates into physical design. For clay courts, engineers use herringbone patterns. Those zigzag channels quickly expel the loose dirt, allowing the shoe to find a solid base. But for hard courts, the tread features a modified, much denser pattern. It's designed for extreme durability against that rough acrylic, but it also allows for a highly precise engineered amount of slip, so the player doesn't just lock up and snap an ankle. And grass courts? Well, they use pimple-like studs to aggressively grip the slippery, organic plant material. So every single shoe is entirely customized to manipulate that translational friction we talked about. All right, part 4, the art of the slide, biomechanics of sliding. This is really the climax of our explainer, where we combine the court surface and that brilliantly engineered shoe to analyze the actual biomechanics of a player sliding. By breaking this complex kinetic event into a digestible sequence, we can see exactly how players are manipulating physics in real time. It's a 3-step dance. Step 1 is the deceleration phase, where the player aggressively plants the foot to absorb that massive 3 times body weight force. Step 2 is the glide, where they intentionally break the translational friction to literally surf across the court. And finally, step 3 is the recovery. This is where they change their foot angle to re-engage the grip and explode right back in the opposite direction. But honestly, what is truly mind-blowing is modern hard court sliding. Think about it. These courts are highly abrasive and incredibly grippy. Yet modern elite players are somehow overcoming this extreme surface friction to slide on them anyway. How on earth did they do that? Well, it's through incredibly precise ankle torque and manipulating that critical shoe contact area ratio we just broke down. They naturally roll their ankles to decrease the shoe's contact area just enough to break the friction, slide right to the ball, and then flatten the foot out to hit the brakes. It is an absolute marvel of human biomechanics. Let's pivot to part 5, wheelchair tennis court dynamics. Adapting to surfaces. The source material brings in a highly engaging perspective on how these exact same venues profoundly affect wheelchair tennis mechanics. The data here on rolling resistance is super revealing. It drastically shifts depending on where you are. It's super high on artificial grass, medium on clay, and really low on hard courts. Because this resistance changes so much between surfaces, wheelchair athletes absolutely cannot rely on a one-size-fits-all approach. They have to entirely adapt their push mechanics, their timing, and even their wheelchair configurations based on the specific venue just to maintain their speed and agility. And when we compare friction coefficients directly to propulsion effort, the whole story becomes crystal clear. Navigating artificial grass with its really high friction coefficient requires vastly different upper body kinetics and significantly more propulsive effort than just gliding effortlessly across a smooth, low-friction hard court. So the physical toll on the athlete's shoulders, arms, and core is completely 100% dictated by how the surface interacts with their tires. Okay, bringing us to part 6, grip, slip, and injuries, finding the balance. Let's tie all of this awesome biomechanical data together. Ultimately, the true goal of all these complex scientific studies isn't just about boosting performance, it's about protecting the athlete. The absolute crucial point here is maintaining a very delicate balance. Excessive grip is highly dangerous. It leads to severe ankle and knee joint torque because the shoe just stops dead. But the heavy momentum of the body keeps violently pushing forward. On the flip side, insufficient grip causes uncontrolled slipping, which leads to severe groin and muscle strains. So the ultimate goal for shoe engineers and court designers is engineering that perfect Goldilocks sweet spot of controlled sliding. I really want to highlight this powerful quote from the research. It says, "The future of tennis footwear lies in manipulating the limits of human biomechanics and surface interaction to find the perfect slip." I mean, that wonderfully sums up exactly where sports engineering and injury prevention are heading next. We've totally moved past just trying to find maximum grip. Now it's all about engineering the perfect, safe slip. So as biomechanical technology and material sciences continue to evolve at this breakneck pace, it leaves us with a huge question. What will the next generation of tennis courts actually look like? Are we going to see intelligent surfaces that dynamically change their friction based on player movement? We are truly pushing the very boundaries of human movement here. Hopefully, this explainer has given you a completely new perspective on the invisible science happening right beneath the athlete's feet. The next time you watch a match, I guarantee you're going to be taking a much closer look at those shoes. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.